So we will start off by what we call the forward pass. Right. With the forward pass, what we are mainly concerned with is the early start and the early finish of each and every activity. Let's go to the first activity A. As a rule of thumb, the first activity's early start is always equal to 0. So we'll put our 0 there. So as a rule, the first activity, the early start of that first activity is always equal to 0. So you start like that. And then the second rule is that the early finish, because remember we said with the forward pass we are calculating the early start and the early finish. So now we've got our early start here. How do we find the early finish? The early finish, right, is equal to the early start plus the duration when we are doing the forward pass. So therefore, here our early finish is equal to 1, which is the duration, plus the early start. So we have our early finish as 1. We go on to the next activity. Now there's another rule that applies from here onwards. Alright, so you notice that there are certain rules that apply only either to the first activity and to the last activity. Right, we've got rules for those particular boxes. Now we want to look at the rule that applies to every other box as we go. So we understand here that we still need to calculate the early start and the early finish, right? So how do we get this early start? The early start of each and every activity is equal to the early finish of the preceding activity. That is a rule. The early start of an activity is equal to the early finish of the previous activity. Right, so it means here that our early start for this one is equal to 1. Why? Because the preceding activity, by preceding, remember we said the one before, right? So we're saying the one before. What is the activity before B? It's A. What is the early finish of A? It's 1. So therefore, the early start of activity B is equal to 1. All right? Okay, we've got our 1 over there. And then we go on to the next activity, the early start. What is the early start of C? It is equal to the early finish of the preceding activity, which is A. So we've got 1 here as well. And the same applies to D. So you can see that the early start of these activities are all the same. Why? Because there is only one activity that precedes these 3 activities, or there is only one activity before these activities. So therefore, they will all have the same early start. And we then apply our second rule to get the early finish. Remember we said it is equals to early start plus the duration. So therefore here the early finish of this activity is equal to 4 plus 1, which is equal to 5. 6 plus 1, 7. 1 plus 1, 2. Alright, we go on to the next one. Now remember, on our previous video we spoke about an activity called a merge activity, right? So we've got a merge activity here. We want to calculate the early start of a merge activity, and we know that the early start of any activity is equal to the early finish of the preceding activity. But the thing with the merge activity now is that it has got more than one preceding activity, or it has more than one activity that comes before it. So now the question is, which early finish rather do we take? Do we take this one, or do we take this one, or do we take that one? All right. So as a rule, when you are calculating the early start of a merge activity, the early start of the merge activity is equal to the highest of the early finishes of the preceding activities. Wow, that is English right there. So how do we get it? So we come here. What is the highest of this early finish? It is this one here. So therefore, our early start there will be our early start will be 7. All right, and then 7 plus 16, we then get 23. Oh yeah, I just calculated that by head. All right, let's move on to the next one. We go to activity F, right? So remember, all these activities, they all come from E. So that means they will all have the same early start. So the early start of F is 23. And the early start of G is also 23. The early start of, the early start of H is equal to 23. And the early start of this one is also equal to 23. All right, and then we move on to calculate the early finish. We say early finish is equal to early start plus the duration. So 23 plus 3, we get 26. 23 plus 6, we get 29. And then here, 23 plus 5, we get 28. And 23 plus 4, we get 27. That. All right, we go on to the next one, the last activity in this case. All right, so remember we said there is a rule that applies to the first activity. Which one is that? That the early start is equal to 0. Right, now check what other rules apply also to the last activity. All right, you will see it here. So first of all, we do the normal thing. What is the normal thing? We need the early start here. Right, we need the early start of this activity, but the activity before it is more than one, so we actually have 4 activities before J. So how do we then calculate the early start there? We take the highest of the previous activities. So the highest in this case is 29. So we say 29 over there, and then 29 plus 2, we get 31. Over there. All right, so we are done with the forward pass. On the next video, we will look at the backward pass. With the backward pass, we will be calculating the late start and the late finish. All right, and the reason why it's called the backward pass is because we are going to calculate backwards, meaning we will start from here, going there, and going all the way there. All right, so the rule that we were talking about that pertains to the last activity here, once you are done with the last activity like this, all you have to do is to match 31. We see that we've got the early finish there of 31, right? So what you do is you also come down here, you say 31, and then here the early start is equal to 29, so therefore we've got something like that. That is just as you don't need to calculate these figures, you just need to match the top with the bottom. I am not really sure why, but it works. All right, okay, see you on the next video.